On stage to present on the topic Reshaping Packaging Content Management for a 71 billion USD FMCG company. With a big round of applause, please welcome Mr. Avinash Voodi, Director Product Marketing, ManageArtworks. Avinash, welcome to the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards 2022, and looking forward to a great session from you. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So I think before I begin anything, usually when you think of a corporate presentation, you're expecting probably a sales pitch. I'll try not to do that. I'll try to talk about what we did. I'll try to keep this to a case study. At the end of this presentation, if you kind of feel that, hey, there is a better way for all of us to do our packaging content, I think that's objective met as far as I'm concerned. But before we begin, a little bit about what we're going to do today. We'll talk about who we are, who is ManageArtworks, what we do, because you're looking at a random guy who just walked up, who's going to talk for 25 minutes and tell you something that's going to change the way you do your packaging. I'm sure you'd want to know who we are. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how is packaging content managed today, what's wrong with it, and why should you even think of fixing it. Okay? So we'll also talk about why is there a case for essentially reusing your packaging content across different SKUs that you do. I know for the last couple of days we've been rather upstream, a lot of discussions have been there. Today, I think in this session at least, we're going to talk about the packaging and the whole artwork bits as we go along. Okay. I'll also talk a little bit about what we are doing, something game-changing that's coming up in about a year or so. I hope that piques your interest as well. Okay, so who we are, who is ManageArtworks? So we are an end-to-end packaging artwork management company. I think that bit is kind of obvious. So everything we do is all the way from managing your packaging content till the time you hit your shelf, right? Everything that goes on in the packaging ecosystem is something that we do. And we've been in this business for a little more than a decade. We've worked with more than 4,000 brands around the world. We've, in fact, helped all these brands process a little more than 1 million artworks in the last 10 odd years. Now, another interesting statistic that's coming up is the amount of time we saved, right? So in packaging, the quicker you hit the market, the more money you make, right, eventually. And there are a lot of factors that are stopping you from getting there. So what we're trying to do is, try and eliminate those barriers so that you essentially reach the markets faster. So across those 4,000 brands, when we, took a cumulative aggregate of how much time did we save, that's about 1,000 years altogether. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much about this. This is just for you guys to see. We've got a bunch of certifications. We are a software company hosted on Microsoft Azure. We are FDA 21 CFR 11 compliant, yada, yada, yada. Not going to talk about that. All right. So this slide kind of represents everything that we do, all the way from content till the time you hit the market. Our focus today will be on content as we go along this session, but quite some time ago, we started out in the artwork review space. I think we have some of our customers as well in the audience today, so who are already using the system, so you know what we do from an artwork management standpoint. So essentially everything that it takes from reviewing your packaging artworks, getting them approved, giving you one place where you can store all your die lines, your artworks, your print proofs, all of that is part of the artwork management system. But then as we kept doing that, we kind of figured out that a lot of the time, your packaging artworks are not right the very first time, not because there is a challenge with how you design or how you approve, but because your packaging content is incorrect. Now today, content comes from various sources, it's not collated, it's inconsistent, and we thought, if we solve the content problem, if your designer gets the right content every time, along with the die lines, then that job of creating that artwork becomes that much more easier. So that's what we do with our artwork content management system. There's also a design component to it. So essentially, most of you, I'm sure, will be using Illustrator and InDesign. So we also built a plugin on Adobe where all of your packaging content that's approved by just the click of a button makes its way to your Adobe or essentially your Illustrator or InDesign and obviously onto your artwork. At the same time, we also have a release module which will help you move your packaging artworks that are the approved ones, the pack shots, your 3D renders, all of them to your digital shelves, right? Wherever you sell, Amazon, Big Basket, all of that is possible. Okay, so how is packaging content managed today? Why is there a challenge, right? So today, it's mostly Word documents or Excel files. Some organizations have product information management systems. In very few places I've seen where they come back and say that, hey, I'm selling on Amazon. I'm going to give you the final packaging artwork. What you see on the artwork, what you get on Amazon is the final content. Just take it there. That's it. That's what I know today. And what's wrong with it? The biggest problem is the fact that it's incomplete, right? There is no system out there where you can actually put all of the content, the logos, the symbols in one place. And each user, right, no matter who they are, for example, if it's your brand logo, then the marketing team needs to approve it. A warning statement, maybe your regulatory team needs to approve it. So there is no system that can bring all of these different types of content together and help them approve all of that in one place. And that's one challenge with not having a content management system. Like I said, it's unapproved, it's inconsistent, so I'm sure most of you are selling in India in different regions, so you might have different languages on your packaging artworks, or you're trying to sell in a different country. So the problem is, if you don't have, again, collated content in one place, then you're sending the same content to your translation agencies again and again, and there's no guarantee that they're gonna give you the same translation like they did the last time. And I'm from Andhra, so there are a lot of times when I pick up a file or when I pick up a product from the shelf, and I'm like, this looks different, this looks odd, why does this translation sound funny? And the two products from the same company that I would have bought in two different time frames have very different translations for the same text. So that problem is very real, very evident. Okay, so some statistics just to scare you a little before we get into the presentation. So when we did a survey with the brands that we already work with, we kind of figured out that more than 58% of the iterations are because your packaging content is not right when you create a packaging artwork. And more than 87% of the time, companies don't even know what's going there, right? Because, again, there's no centralized system. Okay. So I think this is what we're all here for. What did we do with this $71 billion company? So this is an organization that's based out of Cincinnati in the United States, and one of the largest FMCG companies in the world, more than 60 brands. They do business in more than 180 countries, annual revenue of more than 71 billion. Biggest problem, the same things that we spoke about, right? There's no centralized system, they use Excel, there is no visibility, there's no consistency, and language management was a big pain, and it took a lot of time to get things doing. How did we solve it? Quite simple, content management system. So now they have a centralized system where they essentially build and approve their packaging content. Each and every element, like I just spoke about, goes through approval, so the right people approve the right elements before it hits the market. At the same time, they use, obviously, design agencies. So what we do is, from the system, we give them an export of all the approved content in an XML format. And this XML is GS1 compliant, so they can take all of this data. The agency's job of designing the artwork becomes very simple, and once it's all done, all of this getting to the market is also getting that much more easier. So that's something that we did, and it just kind of smoothened out the whole flow. Okay. We're going to talk about why. Why do we need reusable content, right? I'm sure you're all looking at this slide. I think this is visible towards the end of the room as well. So I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think is common across all of these different brands or products out there? Any thoughts? Sorry? All cookies, okay? Brand name is prominent, okay? What else do you think? Feel free to shoot out. Right, it's one brand, it's multiple variants of that particular product. It could be flavors. I think, yeah, it's mostly flavors. So, anything else that you see? Any similarities that you see in those packaging artworks? For example, if you look at Monaco and those 3 different flavors, or same company, yes, But in the same brand, do you also notice that, for example, if you take Monaco, the whole brand, the logo is kind of the same. The pattern in which these artworks are designed is exactly the same. Flavor changes, so the colors are changing. A little bit of text changes, but if you look at it, the overall layout is more or less similar. Do you guys all notice that? Right? So as you keep going along, just a few more companies, right? Some of you might be here. All of this is public data again. So I'm looking at Bacardi, then I'm looking at, Mondelez, 2M, right? You see the same pattern across a bunch of companies when you do different SKUs, right? So I just did a quick, run on Parle-G's website, right, for India. I'm like, I'm going to go and see their, biscuits or cookies section and see, okay, how many different brands do they have? How many products under each, and how many SKUs? Approximately, right? These are approximate numbers, don't hold me to it. But, there are about 15 sub-brands under biscuits. There are about 57 variants altogether. And approximately, there are about 228 SKUs just under biscuits. Okay? So these could be different flavors, different sizes, all of that put together, give or take. Now, if you do not have an organized content management system, then you essentially need to create 228 similar looking briefs to give to your designer to create a packaging artwork. Now, that problem starts looking bigger and bigger as you start having more SKUs, right, as you do business. So this is just to give you an idea on, okay, packaging content management looks fancy, but do I really need it, right? I think the answer to that is right here. There is so much data that can be reused across the board that we are missing an opportunity in terms of reusing it. Okay, a typical packaging artwork. So it looks like a coffee artwork, right? Does this exist? No, that's us. We made it, okay? I went to the designer, I told them that, hey, we can't do software for any company if we can't design a packaging artwork ourselves. And I said, I want a very realistic looking artwork. I want every single element to be there as an actual coffee brand would have. So we created one. And we said, it looks very hazy now, but what we said is, if you take all of the content that's there on the packaging artwork and put it in the system, how would it look like? So we did that, and the output looks something like this. I know it's a little hazy, but what we could do before I move on is, I think most of you would have received a brochure as you walked in today. It's a personalized brochure. You either have your own company's logo or the ManageArtworks logo on top of that. If you could kindly reach out to that and spend a quick minute looking at the artwork and the copy sheet, as we call it, in the previous slide, doesn't go back to, okay. The previous slide that you saw, that's the copy sheet. So I'll just give you a few seconds to pull that up, have a quick look at that, and then we'll talk about the other few slides, okay? Thank you. It doesn't go back. Some of you might not have it. I think we kind of got information towards the last minute. We did the best we could for most companies. So what we essentially did, if you look at that file, is we pulled out one of your own products that's there on the market already today. We either, I think for some, we went to the supermarket, some others, we just went online, we kind of looked at your packaging artwork. Then what we said is, let's take all the content that is here and let's try and put it in our content management system, right? And then take a printout of exactly how that looks like and show it to you. That's what we wanted to do with that experiment. And that's what's there in your brochures that are in front of you. Now, what are the questions that we are trying to answer with this, right? What is a copy management system? Why do I need it? Why can't I just keep using Word or Excel files? Simple answer, the same things that we spoke about. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. If you just look at this slide, you'll know that there are different elements that are going on, just like the papers that you have in front of you. So each element is at a different stage in the approval cycle. Some of them are approved, some of them are yet to begin. In a real organization too, the same thing happens, right? You don't get all of your packaging content one day magically together in a Word document. So it's sent to a bunch of people. People take their time, they upload, they give their inputs. Eventually, somebody is collating all of that, and then you give it to the designer. So that process becomes that much more seamless with a content system, and all of the status and updates are right there. You'll know who it's pending with. You'll know whether it's approved. Where does an element go? Does it go on the front panel, the back panel, the top, the left, the side? All of that is evident with this. Okay. And again, I spoke about this already. It's not just about text. What happens if I have to give instructions to the designer, right? Regulatory folks will be very interested. You're like, hey, I'm going to have to tell him that the calorie size has to be so much for this PDP. Can I tell the designer? Yes, you can, all in one place. For every individual element, you can give instructions to the designer. So when he's designing the artwork, he not only has the right approved content, but he has all the instructions in one place too. Now, Some of you might be using a PLM, PIM, or a recipe management system. You have some data that's there already. Do I have to move all of that? Or do I have to retype it? The answer is no. We can integrate with any of these systems. We can just bring in data seamlessly from all of them right into the content management system, so you never have to retype content as you go along. This is, I think, a quick integration that we did with a recipe management system called Isha. So that's how it looks like. All of my content is the same across SKUs, just a few elements change. Is there a way for me to reuse content? The answer is yes. So once you have, for one particular SKU, all of your content approved, there is an option for you to go back and reuse elements that are common across all of these SKUs. It's very easy for you to extract the data. They will be neatly tagged as reused. You can maintain what we call an element master that has all of this information. It's very easy for you to manage and then exactly know where you've used. So tomorrow when there is a change that you need to make, your manufacturing address, you have to change. And if it impacts 200 of your SKUs, right? How do you find out which 200 to change? Simple, come to the system, just search for the address. The system will tell you all the SKUs that need to be changed. And with just one click of a button, you initiate a change for all of them, right? Quite simple. So, moving on. So the same thing that I spoke about, right? I sell in different places, different countries. How do I do this? How do I manage all of that? Do I manage translations in the system? Yes, you can. Also, does the translator come into the system? Do they do it outside the system? The answer is there is a provision for the translator to be inside the system. So the translator gets a nice little view where it shows him that, hey, here is the text that you need to translate. Here is the instruction. Just put your value. You're done. Now, I know that some translation agencies use their own translation management software, which essentially needs XML inputs. We can also give them all the approved content as an XML. So they can plug it in, do their translation, and give you an XML back that we can load onto the system as well. So all of that, again, is a possibility. There are no challenges with that. Okay. Again, most of you might have different product categories. You might have teams that manage that particular product category. So do I have to always create all of these elements again and again for every SKU? Or can I just templatize the whole thing, right? The answer is simple. You have a cake template. So you can, for example, if you have a product line for cakes, there are a bunch of people that use it. There are some elements that are mandatory. So you define all of that in a template, and you just use the template to create your packaging brief. So it's, again, we are trying to cut down on how much of manual intervention comes in when you're creating your packaging content brief. Okay, the same artwork again. Why does it come up again? It's because we can also convert any packaging artwork that you have into a 3D file. So it doesn't matter if it's for a carton or a bottle. All of that is not a challenge. We can simply convert that into a 3D file. If you're selling online, then according to GS1, there are about 9 angles that you would need. We can also make sure that the right angles are captured as well. All of that is there right in the library. It's out there for you to approve. And again, with just the push of a button, to no matter which e-com platform you sell on, you can push all of that content. So it's seamless. So if you look at it, right from the packaging content to your packaging artwork, to your print proofs, to your 3D renders, to your pack shots, are all in one system, and they're seamlessly flowing from you to the e-com portal. So as a brand, you're maintaining consistency across all of these portals that you're selling on. Okay, what's your future like with copy management? Same things we spoke about. We can take data from anywhere, your existing artworks, PIM systems. We can bring all of that in a central system. Eventually, it makes it easier for you to create new artworks. You can export as briefs and give it to your agencies, and eventually you can push data onto your e-com systems as well. Services, I'm not going to talk too much again. Just the one thing that I want to highlight here is that migration. So a lot of you might say that, hey, system looks great, but all of my data is outside, right? What am I going to do with an empty system? Not needed. You can just throw in your briefs or your packaging artworks. Anything that you have today where you think you have the right approved content, I can take all of that, I can populate the entire system, and then when you start with a system that has all of your data. So it looks like you've been using the system for good. So what are we working on? So this is interesting, right? What we're trying to do is we are trying to work towards almost creating a new packaging artwork by itself. It's an interesting concept. So this artwork that you see on your left, or this whole package, right, Cafe Noir, so does it exist? It doesn't. So we just said we are trying to create an intelligent system and told the system that, hey, I'm trying to start a new coffee product line, right? Tell me how my artwork should look like. So the system now is going out, scrounging the internet, and it's trying to find out what do other coffee brands do? How do their artworks look like? What colors do they have? What imagery do they use? What kind of text do they put? What kind of claims do they make? So it looks at all of that data, and it artificially creates a new packaging artwork for you. This is what we are working on today. This is the next big thing. And what we're thinking is eventually, if not for a completely new product line, at least your adaptations from a 100-gram pack to a 250 or a 1 kilo, all of that becomes that much more easier with a system like that. You really don't have to spend time in creating the brief again and then your designer creating the artwork. All of that goes away. And the best part, right? So I've been talking about huge volumes. We said, P&G, a bunch of other customers use it. So it definitely looks like it's an enterprise solution. Can smaller to medium enterprises even afford a system like this? So what we do is we do what's called a pay-per-use model or a paper SKU model. So what we try and do is we try and take away the ambiguity of setup fee and license fees, how many people are using it, how many internal, how many external, all of that goes away. All we try and do is say that, hey, just pay for what you use. How many SKUs do you manage in the system? Just pay for that amount. So it becomes very simple. It's very transparent. You know exactly what's happening. Just a couple of slides about where our customers are all around the world. A bunch of our customers, just for your reference. There are a lot more. I just could fit some on one slide. So that's what you see here. And that's more or less it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avinash. Can we have a big round of applause for Avinash here? And Avinash, I would request you to kindly be on stage. And I would like to call Mr. Abir Mukherjee, CTO from Alpha Milk Foods Private Limited, to kindly do the honors of felicitating Avinash here. Thank you so much, Avinash. So that was Avinash Voodi, Director, Product Marketing from ManageArtworks, for giving a presentation on reshaping packaging content management for a 71 billion USD FMCG company. Thank you, Avinash. Very, very insightful session as well, and different from what we have heard through both the days of the session.